Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, in room and those online. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, those in room and those online. This is a discussion we're going to have this evening, sponsored by the Democratic Labour Party St. Michael South Central Branch. Before we get into the proceedings, I'm going to ask Mr. Adrian Bascom to say a word of prayer.
Good evening to all out there in Facebook land. Good evening to all comrades. Let's all bow our heads in a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you, Lord, once again for bringing us all together, whether it be online or in person, Lord. I ask you, Lord, even further to touch the proceedings. Bless both speakers with the knowledge, Lord God, and the gumption that you would give them to speak forth the truth as we know it to be. Lord, I ask you to even further stretch out your hands to those that may be sick, those that may be ill from this dreaded COVID-19 virus. Lord God, touch every man, woman, and child, Lord God, and every family, Lord God. Touch every person, Lord God, that may be ailing from some other sickness, Lord God, mentally or physically. I pray, Lord God, that your hand will go forth and stretch out to them. Bless them, Lord God, in every way possible. I ask you these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Reggie Hunt, and I'm the moderator this evening for this evening's program. Before I introduce my first speaker, I wish to say that I look at the record for this great party between 2008 and 2018, and there were 62 projects, either completed or part thereof in those 10 years. And there were about 12 or 13 that was on the drawing book, ready for implementation. I give that little record because in politics it is a very difficult thing for a government to please everybody. And therefore, to have completed or part thereof, we didn't include the housing projects and so on because those would have break to over 100. So you're just dealing with projects and not necessarily the houses or anything that were built. And therefore, the record stands out for this great party. This evening, the theme is the state of politics in Barbados. And I'm going to ask my first speaker, former representative of the St. Michael South Central and Minister of House of Tourism for some 10 long years. Some people said he's the best Minister of Tourism they've ever had in Barbados. His record, no doubt, speaks for itself. By profession, he's a civil engineer, and I can add another profession to that, is that he's a complete politician, having served his apprenticeship, and then became a minister of repute, 2008 to 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you out in radio land, or online, I should say, those in-house, to welcome Mr. Richard Seeley.
Comrade Reggie, and good evening to all of my comrades gathered here, and special greetings to everyone who is tuned in on the various platforms in cyberspace with us this evening. I, of course, want to join with the chairman of the St. Michael South Central branch in welcoming the president of the party, Ms. Verla Depeiza, who is here and who we'll be hearing from shortly, and to say how pleased I am to be able to address you this evening. However, these are not normal times. These are peculiar times. Some will say even bizarre times. And therefore, I take this opportunity to extend condolences to all of those who have lost loved ones during this crisis. The pandemic has touched all of us in some way, form, or fashion. We have seen good men and good women fall to this virus. Only earlier today, a friend of mine from school lost his father yesterday at Harson's Point, and it's always very moving when this thing hits so close to home. So my sympathies go not only to Stanton Millington, the proprietor of New Look Boutique, and his family, but indeed all of those who have lost loved ones. In that regard, permit me to take this opportunity, it's the first time I'm speaking publicly, to extend condolences to the family of Sir Maurice King. Adrian and Stephanie in particular, his children, but indeed all of the others as well, the grands and the various other family members as well. Condolences in that regard. I'm happy still, however, to be here, and happy that the branch has invited me once again to continue my political stewardship in St. Michael South Central. And again, the party president is here, so through her, I will also thank the various organs for ratifying my candidacy and asking me to be the standard bearer for the Democratic Labour Party in St. Michael South Central. I accept that with humility and with the assurance that I will give my very best to see that the seat, of course, comes back to the Democratic Labour Party. The challenges in St. Michael South Central are no different to the challenges in Barbados. And it is a fact that, yes, COVID-19 has become so pervasive. It has sucked the oxygen out of everything, but the problems, the fundamental problems, the structural problems are still there. And our mission as Democrats must continue to be to improve the life and the lot of all Barbadians. we speak of the just society, and we must continue to pursue to see that we obtain the just society. Our founder leader used to speak of the just society, Erskine Sandiford spoke of the just society. It is a fact that all of our leaders spoke of it, and dare I say, even Owen Arthur would hint at it from time to time. So it's not exclusively a Democratic Labour Party concept, and indeed is rooted in our very earliest times. The prophet Amos, in the Old Testament, he spoke of the just society and was speaking about economic inequality. This is in the Bible. So indeed, we can't lose track of that mission in these times where it appears that even though Barbados is seeing extremely difficult times, the inequality seems to be growing. And under the Barbados Labour Party government, yes, we are all seeing it tough, we are all seeing it hard. But some of their people appear to be prospering. And we have to watch the growth of inequality in Barbados. We understand the economy is challenged, but when you have a situation where your economy is shrinking, but yet wealth in certain quarters seems to be growing, you are on a very dangerous path. I sometimes shudder when I hear the ease and the frequency with which the current Prime Minister refers to the Jamaica model. I don't like this idea as much as I love Jamaica. Even the most patriotic Jamaicans would tell you that one area where they went wrong was with the policy mix that led to that growth of inequality. You basically have two Jamaicas now. And I mean, if any of you had the opportunity to go there and you see how the wealthy Jamaicans live, like anyone else, like any wealthy anywhere in the world, but look at how those who are in the urban areas and so on that are challenged, that growth of inequality is something that we, of course, need to watch. And St. Michael South Central, obviously, as an urban constituency with peculiar considerations as well as the urban areas, it will be especially felt in this constituency. The challenges of housing still remain and abound. The people in St. Michael South Central, and it was their right, they decided to change in 2018, but they were told that certain people cared. Vote for me and watch me, and they would deal with the housing problem. Nothing has happened since. I can tell you, very clear conscience, I was elected in 2003, and in my 15-year period, we had 2 government housing projects, one in Carrington Village and one in Britain-Sill, 72 housing solutions in Britain-Sill, and nearly 30, over 100. And we understood that that was only a dent, but it was a move in the right direction. And dare I say, the Democratic Labour Party wasn't only St. Michael South Central that benefited. We had an aggressive housing program at a time of severe housing challenges. This government has given you 4 ministers of housing in 4 years, and finally, a key was delivered to a housing solution. 4 years, 4 ministers, and at least a dozen houses in St. George with a promise of more houses. And I want to flag something early. Now, I understand they plan to bring in houses from China. I also understand, and I suspect the president will speak to this, that the company Evergreen they're supposed to get the houses from is under serious challenge and may actually go belly up, to use the American expression. But whether or not it's Evergreen or whoever, that's an awfully long distance to bring houses when so many of our tradesmen are out of work. And to tell them, oh, you get to do the foundation, and go and sit down and keep quiet. I think we need to watch that. The names that I'm hearing involved in this project sound very familiar. One was known with the hardwood misadventure earlier times, and another one is involved in this cryptocurrency thing. I must tell you, this bit, call me a traditionalist, but I kind of like the idea of a currency backed by a government and not backed by a promissory note. I mean, I'm just saying, all the money that I've earned in my life has been backed by a government. Whether, mostly the government of Barbados. Done most of my work here. I've done some other work elsewhere. But whatever monies I earned, whether EC dollars or US dollars, I could even convert to Barbados dollars. This cryptocurrency thing, I am a little bit of a traditionalist, but again, to the matter at hand, all of these names that I'm hearing in this Chinese adventure to deal with the housing problem, it's causing me I'm a little concerned. And yeah, you can forgive me when, indeed, the relationships that this government enters into privately in the international thing seem to be coming under some focus right now. I don't know if I can warming to the idea of houses from China. That's a long way to go for houses. I accept that most of what we do use in the industry is imported. We usually get our wood from either North America, South America, some of the inputs to the cement. We have a cement plant here, our source overseas, etc. Nearby, you bring in a whole house from China, and it doesn't look to me, based on some of the numbers I've seen, that there's really any savings involved. I think you should relook that, because you're bragging about the level of foreign reserves that you have as well, too. Surely that will be a necessary dent in your foreign reserves. But I look at the broader housing policy, and I think it is fair to say, I don't know what Mr. Payne, Dr. Duguid, Mr. Phillips, there was another one too. Oh man, they had 4 ministers of housing. I can't remember the other one now. But I don't know what they've been doing, but it's fair to say this government's failed in housing as compared to the last government. And I could even speak to low-hanging fruit. Chairman, former senator, Mr. Hunt referred to projects that were left on the table. One of the more interesting and exciting ones was the plan for tenants to get freehold of their units. And that was taking time, obviously, because there was engineering work, surveying work, legal work that had to be done. 2,600 units were ready to be transferred. And the irony of it, the brunt of those units were in constituencies that were held by the Barbados Labour Party in the last parliament. No, well, all the seats basically are held by the DLP now, save St. Michael West. But the point is, St. Michael North, St. Michael Southeast, constituencies that had large housing estates, where their MPs were correctly lobbying to get those leases transformed into title deeds. And the Democratic Labour Party did all the work. And this government, I don't know if it's an IMF dictate or what, has reversed that process. And all of them are now tenants again, disenfranchising people. They were given back the money and so on. So now they will no longer have freehold. They are to be tenants for life. In many cases, they have already been transgenerational tenants, have more than paid for the units. So when we speak of a failed housing policy, we can even speak to making backward steps. I could understand if you tell me you can't find the money to do housing projects, new housing, new build. But these are existing housing solutions, that all the work was done, and we've taken a backward step in that regard. It doesn't directly affect St. Michael's South Central in terms of the units, but it certainly gives us a view into the thinking of the housing policy. So if we are hoping, for example, as I started to lobby for, that the land on Hinesbury Road, the Dr. Wilson estate, beautiful property that would lend itself to a lovely government housing project. But it's not even a hope in hell that this government would even think about doing that. And I mean, and they could do it and take credit for it. I don't have any interest in credit. It's about finding housing solutions for affordable ones for people who are struggling. It is a tragedy that people are raising families in rooms, renting rooms to raise families, and that's leading to all sorts of social challenges. And that has nothing to do with the pandemic. The pandemic has worsened it, if anything. But that is one of the areas that, for sure, I will continue to make noise about. I remember when I was elected in 2003, the lady who was the COVID communication person for a brief period, she was the minister I was in at the time. Miss Thompson, she became Mrs. McDowell during that time as well too. She got and the truth is, the Stuarts Lodge project was shelved after I was elected. We had to put it back on the agenda after 2008, and then we also got Valerie as well. But I was keeping noise in all 5 of those years in opposition for housing to come to this constituency, and eventually it did. And I will continue to keep noise, not only for St. Michael's South Central, but for the entire urban corridor, because it is a serious problem in Barbados. And I am not so sure that the Chinese route is the sustainable solution for several different reasons. I'm particularly concerned about the cost of living and the way in which it has skyrocketed and the impact it is having. Some of the phone calls I get from residents in this constituency are particularly worrying, and the extent to which the capacity to provide a balanced meal for your children has now become prohibitive. Not saying that we didn't have challenges when we were in office, but things have worsened. And I am not going to accept that because of a pandemic, that the government has some ready-made excuse, a get-out-of-jail-free card. You remember Monopoly? You get the get-out-of-jail-free card. They're no ready-made excuse. Places booming. The same Jamaica the Prime Minister loves so much had a big ceremony, 1 million visitors since they reopened their economy. Cayman Islands, 4 tower cranes on the 8-mile stretch. St. Vincent, building a new hotel at the old Bacamat Bay, Sandals, coincidentally. St. Lucia getting on with their business. Everybody getting ahead and anxious to benefit. Turks and Caicos. People doing what they have to do, and what are we doing but using excuses after excuses and nothing happening. And, the cost of living element is one that is really worrying and one that we need to focus on. We need to get people working, get the economy going. care packages are not going to cut it. That is very un-Barbadian. We had this thing about getting in a queue and waiting for a defense force van or a truck to bring a few basic items. That's not what we want. We want jobs, and we can get jobs. We need to create jobs. The Democratic Labour Party had a strategy. And it is a fact that in 2017 we had an unemployment rate of 9.7% because we were able to get tourism going on all its cylinders. For the first time, we had 7,000 hotel rooms in this country. After we had done the work on Sandals and the expansion in St. Lawrence Gap, Mr. Seal bringing the old Amaryllis back on track, 153 rooms. We had, for the first time, when I took over in 2008, there were just over 6,000 rooms, and we had been stagnant there since 1980. We had 7,000 rooms by 2018, and we were on track to move from 7,000 to 8,000 in a hurry, with the rooms of 450 from Sam Lord's and the rooms from Sandals Beaches and Downtown Hyatt. We were going to move in a hurry, but of course, the then opposition was opposed to everything. And now, of course, they're in government, they're trying to get it going. Never mind some very stupid and ridiculous remarks made by the Prime Minister about the then chairman of the Sandals Group. Forced them to take Sandals Beaches off the priority list, and now they're building 3 hotels in Jamaica, 1 in St. Vincent, upgrading the 1 in Turks and Caicos, and nothing happening in Speightstown. That is irresponsible behavior on the part of the government, and explains now why you have to give out care packages to family, or tell young people, if you want work, go and rake up volcanic dust, or see if you could get a picking up sargassum seaweed to pelt back in the sea, to come back 2 weeks later and clean it up again. That is not good enough. And one of the things that I have noticed happening in Barbados with greater frequency now, Dr. Delisle World wrote about this in the paper the other day, and I'm going to call a name I probably shouldn't call, but I can call it because I will give. Reverend Guy Hewitt spoke about it. Youth migration. Young people are picking up and leaving Barbados. In this very constituency, my former constituency assistant and my former personal assistant are both tuned in from the U.S. because they ain't got no opportunities here. Other people whose names I don't want to call, but you would have seen me with, one in Canada, another one trying to get back to Canada because no opportunity. We have always had people who were adventurous and wanted to go abroad, but it was always to pursue studies or maybe work and study and return home. That the idea of people just leaving because there's no opportunity, it is a serious problem. And they're leaving firm in the knowledge that they just don't think that they're going to come back. A big problem. And I think that issue is one that we need to unpack as a party and try to see how we can start to ferret out opportunities for our young people going forward. I hope you don't think that because I focused on my former portfolio that somehow I believe that tourism is the alpha and the omega. Far from that. I've always believed that a policy at the macroeconomic level where we diversify our foreign exchange earning opportunities is a must. And certainly in my time at tourism, I always advocated the farm-to-table program to help our agricultural folk. I remember we even had a consultant during my time at what would have been the Barbados Tourism Authority to see how we could get linkages with the international business sector, because it is a fact, people are attracted to the jurisdiction Barbados to do business because of what they perceive as destination Barbados, or image, okay? It doesn't, you can't cubbyhole it necessarily. So I'm saying there are opportunities to leverage into the other areas. And the reality is, when you're getting, well, in my time when we had a tourist industry, we were getting close to 700,000 long stay, and of course close to 800 or so thousand short stay. That's an automatic market. Nearly 4 times the population of Barbados. So our farmers, the best friend of the farmers of Barbados is the tourism industry. And that doesn't mean it can't eventually meet the various international standards and export. But you have a market right here for our manufacturers, for our service providers, for our cultural practitioners, for everyone. So I still believe very strongly in looking at other areas where we can earn and, of course, save. I was very proud to be part of a cabinet that had delivered the Barbados National Energy Policy in 2017. And what we had done to see that renewable energy had become such a feature in Barbados. Opportunities for photovoltaic panels, not only on government buildings, but residences. And we have an opportunity now, not necessarily to directly earn foreign exchange, but the $800 million a year that we're spending on hydrocarbons, we can cut that significantly. And that is an opportunity, again, not necessarily of foreign exchange earnings, but foreign exchange savings. And that is how we can get an economy going and create opportunities for people in St. Michael, South Central, and yes, indeed, all of Barbados. And that is my role in the Democratic Labour Party and through the DLP in Barbados, how we can get out of this mire. Because it looked to me like if we just slipping and sliding further and further down. And you know, there tends to be a pattern in Barbadian political reality. The Dems got to come back in office and clean up everything the BLP messes up, it seems. It's going to happen again. It's happening. It's happening. You pick the metric, you pick the area. I spoke about housing, a failing grade. Cost of living, a failing grade. Law and order. Dale Marshall is without a doubt the worst Attorney General this country has ever seen. And we now have to come up with a mix of policies to try to see how we can once again tackle this issue at the root area. I don't want to go out, well, I have to mention this, because when we had 35 murders a year, Adriel Braffett was the AG, and he was shouting hard. He had to go. You know, now all of a sudden, when he has 50 murders, his defense is, but the people doing the murders went to school when the Democratic Labour Party was in power, so it ain't his fault, it's their fault. It's our fault, it's not his fault. You know, a colossal waste of time, and he definitely is one that we would like to see the back of. But I was making the point about the overall report card in terms of the quality of life that we are enjoying in Barbados. It has declined precipitously since 2018. You cannot escape that. And I'm not going to allow the government to talk about the pandemic. When we had to deal with the worst economic crisis since 1929, the then leader of the opposition said, don't talk about the rest of the world. We ain't care about the rest of the world. Tell us about Barbados. But no, all of a sudden, no. All she's about is the rest of the world and then studying Barbados. But you know, there's a God up there, and you have to be very careful what you say. And that is why even now, as we are going through this phase, and I will always tell all of my colleagues when the president down, that we do have to be careful with what we say. And we have to come up with programs and policies going forward that will be realistic, that we can sell to people. We have to make them understand there will be some sacrifice. But I certainly have absolutely no desire to be part of anything remotely similar to what took place by the then opposition party just prior to 2018. The foolishness flying out of their faces, from the leader down, promising everything under the sun, knowing full well it couldn't be delivered. And now this. We have, of course, to continue to be clear and coherent and honest in what we have to say to the people of Barbados. And I am prepared to do that at the level of St. Michael South Central and beyond, because there are challenges. We had challenges before COVID, and we will have challenges after COVID. The truth is, COVID really and truly has completely sucked the oxygen out of the wider issue of health care, because we're not even talking about some of the other things that have been affecting us for some time. One of my early tasks in the Parliament of Barbados was to be the Shadow Minister of Health. I have a soft spot for the area still, and I'm one of those who understands why we can't have a national health service in Barbados. Too expensive. Late GM Adams, Tom Adams, he tried it. He stopped short. The drug service was supposed to be the beginning, and then he was supposed to have a national health service. But it was too expensive, given that you have a national insurance scheme as well, and to try to get deductions for both to, in essence, capitalize the national health service would be impossible. The Bahamians, I think, went a little further, but they couldn't. I don't think they even got theirs off the ground either. It's expensive business. The UK and Canada have, and it is not cheap. And we have to look at more creative ways involving the private sector, insurance providers, and seeing what we can do to share this question of healthcare costs. And as it stands, unfortunately, there are things happening at the hospital and at our polyclinics that we can't talk about because everything is about COVID. But people are still struggling to get primary, secondary, and tertiary health care in this country. I also would take this opportunity as well to, well, if anything, wish the Minister of Health all the best in his future endeavors. He has indicated that he's retiring after a couple of years on the job. I understand it has been very stressful for him. I have a measure of sympathy for him for a couple of reasons. One, he is a military officer, retired. I don't take lightly men and women who are prepared to take an oath to defend their country and to lead people in defending their country, even if it means bearing arms. I will always have a soft spot for people who do that, and I therefore always had a soft spot for Jeffrey, dare I say, because he became a friend eventually. I also understand that it was not easy dealing with a pandemic. And of course, on top of all that, he's a super nice guy. So I do wish him well. I understand he's probably had enough. And certainly after the way that he was treated during that Prime Minister's press conference, like a little boy, his permanent secretary writes a letter. And I know Janet Phillips very well. No, let me rephrase that. She filled in at my ministry for 3 months, and there are PSs and there are PSs, and there are some PSs. And Janet is not going to sign a letter like that unless she informs her minister and unless she's been properly empowered to do it. So even if it was that he didn't know where the instruction came from. And it only come from one place, it didn't come from the minister. And that would be the office of Prime Minister. If he was unaware of that, he would have been made aware at some point by a PS like Janet Phillips. She ain't gonna sign a letter that her minister don't know. And for the Prime Minister to suggest on national television, oh look, no, I was dealing with that. He ain't supposed to know, go in the court, go upstairs in your room, eat your greens, do your homework, and don't come back out. I mean, I think they're lucky that he only retired and then resigned. But as I mentioned earlier, he is a military officer, and loyalty and commitment to mission and commitment to your commanding officer, these things mean a lot to him, and you have to respect that. So his resigning, his retirement, his announcing his retirement the way that he did, the manner in which he did, is significant. But beyond that, as I say, genuinely like him, he spends. No, that's actually Christchurch West. I was about to say there's a place in Clapham where we would meet up, but that's next door to South Central. But he's not unknown to South Central as well, too. But the point is, we wish him well, and we thank him. And if I salute the Minister of Health in what he is doing and wish him well in his future endeavors based on announcements that he has made, I also have to thank all those healthcare workers in this constituency and beyond who are going beyond the call of duty. And they have, these are not normal times, and we can only hope that they continue to do what they have to do. And I will add my voice to those many voices encouraging as much personal responsibility as we can muster to get past this pandemic. It is a fact that a vaccine doesn't guarantee anything. You get vaccinated, you still have to mask up, social distance, wash your hands. You have to do everything that you're supposed to do before you're vaccinated. And therefore, I would like to suggest preaching more personal responsibility and stop shouting and hollering at people. The Prime Minister and her choice to act in her capacity, I've noticed at press conferences that they're very angry. And anger is not a good place for a decision maker to be. You make bad decisions when you're angry. It is the worst emotion. You shouldn't be emotional generally. But the worst emotion to have when you're making decisions is anger. And I have noticed that they seem to be quite angry when they're talking about this issue of trying to get people vaccinated and the like. There's no need. Listen, the anti-vaxxers ain't budging. Those that are pro-vaccine have either gone or going. And those who are in the middle, let's try a little bit of honey and not vinegar to get them on board. Be nice and, coax them and encourage them. And you will probably eventually get to your threshold. I prefer to say the desired threshold. I don't want to use that term, herd immunity. My barber, who is from this constituency, unfortunately, people probably know who I'm referring to now, because I only go to, there are a few people that do that in this constituency, but I've been only going to one for the last 20 plus years. And he looked at me and he asked me, after referring to the concept of herd immunity, he said, "What is a herd?" I said to him, which is truthfully the dictionary definition, it is a collection of ungulates, usually cattle. Ungulates, of course, are the group of mammals that all have hoofs, so you can have bison, other things that can also get a herd of. But yes, oxen are also ungulates as well. But you know, he allowed me to know that he ain't going to get no vaccine because he ain't a cow. Now, of course, his language was a little more flowery than that in the process. But I'm saying you have folks like him that I don't think are going to budge. I don't care how badly the Prime Minister behaves on national television, but you have others who you could coax and convince. I made a suggestion while being interviewed by Vic Fernandes at Capital Media, Mr. David Ellis, who, of course, came in for a lot of lashes. I have a recommendation for him, and I think, and a very serious one, that forget the media, whether traditional or modern, and the blast at the macro level trying to get people vaccinated. Get into the communities. St. Michael South Central or any community. We'll go right short over there in Bannister Land. If you interview every resident in Bannister Land and you were to ask them, who are the two most influential people in this community? 95% would say the same two people. And that is true in every community in Barbados. If you ask everybody in every community to identify three people, let's say, most cases they're going to identify the same three people. It might be the pastor, it might be the person that runs the shop, it might be the retired school teacher that taught everybody's child, it might be a political canvasser, it might be the manager of a successful football team, it might be the coach of a successful basketball team. It might be somebody who did well and moved out the community but comes back and helps people. There are going to be three folks, and that is who you need to get on board. Those nodes of influence in the community, and get them to talk to maybe those who are skeptical or those that need a little nudge, and stop shouting and hollering at people and describing them as being foolish and the nonsense has to stop. And that's not the way to do it. And as I say, if you push the vaccine, that's fine. But I also would like to see us pushing more personal responsibility, because the vaccine itself is not going to get us past this. So my message, as I talk to even the residents of St. Michael South Central and all Barbadians, you know, I am saying, make your choice and do what you have to do in terms of the vaccine, but practice, be responsible. Personal responsibility is going to also go a very, very, very long way. I, of course, want to take this opportunity to thank everyone in the branch who've been so loyal, been so supportive, and who've encouraged me, who've offered prayers that we can continue this work. I give you the assurance that I will do my very best. And I also give you the assurance that something that I don't particularly like doing, I shouldn't say I don't like doing it, something I am not a natural at, embracing the new media. I have enough people around me who've been pushing me and goading me in that direction. And I understand that these times demand it, and we have to get out there and do what we have to do. And Barbados needs it, and needs it desperately. Mr. Chairman, Madam President, residents of St. Michael South Central, and indeed everyone tuned in, I want to thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for listening to me. And of course, once again, I give you the assurance that I am committed to continuing the very important work that we started for the Democratic Labour Party in order to see that Barbados ultimately reaches that place where it can be that just society. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richard City, for that history lesson. You know, I was looking through, when he spoke about the programs that the Democratic Labour Party had implemented, you know, there were this reference made by the Prime Minister when she was leader of the opposition, and referred to the 10 years under the Democratic Labour Party as a lost decade. And in my introduction, I had spoken about the programs that were developed, implemented on the books, or the drawing board, so to speak, by the Democratic Labour Party. Mind you, one or two of them, they have continued. They have continued, one or two of them. Well, government is a continuum, we all would agree. Government goes from government to government, and therefore, that is understandable. But when I look through my history notes and talk about a lost decade, Japan had a lost decade in the 1990s. Their production was down. The whole economy, their shareholding, everything was in spatters. Japan, that was considered at that time about the third most powerful economy in the world. And then, of course, they had Chernobyl, I think it was, where the explosion of the nuclear plant, and then that sunk them further. That was a lost decade. And that is why, when I look at that period earlier, in my introduction, and I spoke about what we had done, the programs, and some people accept that. Schools were built. Children were still going to school. They were still eating. Bus fares were normal. Bus fares are normal now. Some people pay $21 a day to get to and fro. So that propaganda, propaganda could be the truth too. But if it like Dr. Goebbels from Germany propaganda, pure lies. Pure lies. A man who committed suicide and killed his family and everything after World War II could not face the world. And so was Hitler. You know, history is something that makes people either gain friends or lose friends. And that is why I always have a history point to make. Because I've been following world events from the time I was 10 years old. 10 years old. And I got copious notes on a number of world events that I always make references to. I am a fan of the BBC from the time I was about 10 years old. We didn't even have the radio then. I used to run next door and put my ear onto well, you know, of course, the houses were chattel houses in those days, and listen to the BBC. All when the war was going on in Algeria, I could have tell anybody how many persons were killed in that war. Now, I wish to, not here to speak, but I just have to give my little notes. I want to, I didn't do it at first because I deliberately did not mention our president, Mr. Verla Depeiza. as being present, but I'm going to do it now. But I want to give a little bio on her background to show that she is not a guide. I don't want to say a Boy Scout, a guide in this business of politics. We want to deal with it because we have to do this. Democratic Party was always made of people with potential and ability from the inception. When those 27 members sat down to form this great party on the 27th of April, 1955. Mr. Depeiza was educated at Harrison College. It was a 1991 Barbados exhibition awardee. She completed her tertiary education at the University of Southampton, where she gained a Bachelor of Science degree in politics and law, with upper second class honors. These are two separate degree designations, and critical to the study of politics was the application of economic principles to ordering of the society. Her dissertation, for which she received her first-class honors, was entitled Controlling Drugs Trafficking in the Caribbean. Further education was undertaken at Queen Mary College, University of London, where she achieved a merit in the Master of Law degree specializing in criminology and criminal justice. The courses of study included policing and policy, and police policy and crime control. Although she does not practice in the field, she is a trained criminologist. Depeiza is qualified to practice in England and Wales since 1996. However, she chose instead to return to Barbados. 3 weeks after her return to these shores, she joined the Charlton Chambers, that's the chambers of the Cheltenhams, etc. Very good people, believe it or not, don't mind you on the other side. White Park Road, St. Michael, where she remains in general practice to this day, having been called to the local bar in 2000. Mr. Depeiza was a candidate in Christchurch West for the Democratic Labour Party on 2 occasions. She also chaired the National Insurance Board Severance Pay Tribunal for 10 years, to from 2008 until recently. As a public service, show you here again, public service, she gave back what she took out of the country. And she won an exhibition, don't forget that, at the expense of the government of Barbados. And Ms. Depeiza was a presenter on CBC. I used to listen to her often on legal matters. She has held several offices, both in the Young Democrats and currently the president of the substantive party, the Democratic Labour Party. She is the mother of 2 teenagers, 1 boy, 1 girl. And I know the boy really loves his mother. I see how he hugged her up at the conference. Ladies and gentlemen, in-house and those online, I wish for you to welcome to the podium our recently elected president of this Democratic Labour Party, Ms. Verla Depeiza.
Good evening, everyone. We're having some late moments here, as it should when you're fellowshipping with one another. Oh, we can't always be serious, although we are living in serious times. Comrades, the Democratic Labour Party, from its very inception, understood its mandate clearly. There's no greater representation of that than in a member's passport. And I have always been urging our members to read it. And now we have put it out there on our website that non-members can read it as well. And you will understand the philosophy of the Democratic Labour Party, its underpinnings, its grounding, how our people view our country. And that is important because the times that we are living in right now speak to a moment when we have to pause and think about how we feel about ourselves, how we view ourselves home and also on the international stage, and then make our plans for the future. Because we get this sense under the present administration of ad hoc law. We're making rules as we're going along. We're looking for knee-jerk reactions to everything. And none can be more serious for us than the crisis that we're in right now in relation to our Constitution. And that really is what I wish to speak about this evening. Because we are a democracy, we subscribe to all of the democratic principles, including the one about the rule of the majority. And when we speak about the rule of the majority, we're not talking about the majority in Parliament, you know. We're talking about the majority of our people and the will of the people. Because those of us who offer ourselves for public service have to remember that we literally are the servants of the people. We are here to carry out the will of the people. How then do you start on a path of the republic and you haven't had a conversation with your people? How do you, an entire year ago, give a signal in a throne speech and you are now scrambling to have consultations with people? Why is it that you started with the private sector? Companies don't vote, people vote, and it is people that matter and people that must be at the center of every single decision making. That is not to say that businesses are excluded. We have commercial people as well. But when we are talking about dealing with our Constitution, this is not a tinkering. This is a total upheaval of everything that we have known as an independent country up until this point. And you cannot seriously look me in the eye or any other Barbadian and tell me that you got a mandate from a document that is an entire generation ago. I found a copy. I've been rearranging my life. And I found a copy of the Ford Commission report. And I've started reading it again, and I have noticed that quite a few things that we're talking about now are not even in that document. So you can't refer us to a document that is as old as that, 1998. There are voters who were not born yet. And then you tell us seriously that you are dealing with that issue today. And especially when we look at the documents that have come out, and I'm not going to deal with the charter this evening. There's enough fodder in everything else. I am dealing strictly with the constitutional amendment. And it is baffling. How do you get to the point of talking about constitutional reform to remove a head of state and to repatriate a constitution that is a schedule to an order, but you're doing away with the order? There has to be some mechanism in order to convert, transfer, transform, and whilst you are doing it, why are we not having a wholesale conversation on our Constitution? Because I can tell you that our Constitution is very firm on particular things. For instance, our Constitution gives only the government of the day the power to make legislation to mandate vaccines. Only the government of the day. Never mind we see businesses doing it. However, the temperature of our people on the street tells us that that is not a philosophy that they hold today. So what we should be looking at is how we can shape our future going forward. And then we come up with documents. And we laid it in the House and they discussed it. 5 seem not to have bothered to attend such a momentous occasion. But we have before us a Constitution Amendment Bill that makes significant changes to how Barbados is accustomed to being run, and none of it has been discussed with the people of Barbados. We will have all the pretty speeches in Parliament on nebulous points. We will hear certain of our, let's call them political pundits, speaking about how the Prime Minister is giving up rights because the choice of the President will now be by the joint houses of Parliament. Both Parliament and, I beg your pardon, both the House of Assembly and the Senate. But it doesn't in any way address the fact that the powers of the President under this draft bill are significantly less than what the Governor General has now. And I am sure if you ask the average person if they are aware that it is not just a simple name change, that they would be surprised. Because that is what they have been led to expect by the words that are spoken in press conferences. But the words that are written in the document say something completely different. And we have to be aware of these things. And I just want to highlight a small portion of it. If the technical team can put up for me only Section 34G. And whilst you get to see Section 34G, I will speak simply to the terms of having a president. We heard the Prime Minister for ourselves speak about an electoral college and how an electoral college will be choosing who the president will be. And I have looked, I have searched, and I cannot find to this day in this constitutional bill any mention of an electoral college. There is none. And you have to ask yourself then, what else are you being told that is not the reality in the document? And you have to ask yourself what is not being spoken of that you need to be aware of before you can make any decision on a republic. And I will digress for just a moment to say that this must be a decision of Barbados, because democracy means that it is by the people, for the people, and of the people. And it cannot be that you abuse a constitutional majority in Parliament to bring significant, this is not even a significant change, this is an entirely new way of existence for the people of Barbados, and they seem blissfully unaware of it. First of all, the President will have term limits. Now, we are aware of a Governor General who keeps office either until they pass or until they retire. And as a figurehead, we have had no issue with this because they are a representative figure. But under this constitutional amendment bill, and that is quite an interesting thing to call it, but I will get into that a little later. The post itself is cheapened by making it a 4-year stint renewable. Now, if you consider that a political term is 5 years maximum, a political term, and you are dealing with a figurehead position that ought not to be touched by politics, and you put it at 4 years, how do we guarantee that the choice of a president is not beholden to the government of the day? Especially when you how does that not make a president beholden to the government? Especially if 6 months before your term expires is when you get to know if your term will be extended. That means that 2 years out, 4-year term, you are being evaluated by the government of the day and the leader of the opposition. They threw that in, but they made it very clear that if the leader of the opposition does not approve, then it goes to Parliament for a decision, for a vote. You get the point. Good. So then, how is it that you have a renewal process that is as extended and extensive as that, to have an answer 6 months before the 4-year term is ended? So your answer is coming at 3.5 years. So at year 2 and year 3, you are being evaluated as to whether you can get back the position that you have. How is that not going to be influenced by politics? How do we move from a governor general who holds that position ostensibly for life to a president who is a short-term resident at government house? Because that's all 4 years is. A short-term resident at government house. And you tell me, and when I say me, I mean the people of Barbados, you say to us that there is no significant change coming on the 30th of November, your designated day for the Republic, and that we have nothing to fear. But this is within a document, and not a man is stand up in Parliament and talk about this last week. This is what we need to be talking about. And if it is we can't trust you on this little nitty-gritty, what republic you talking about that we're discussing after the 30th of November? The discussions have to come first. And I don't think that there is any understanding and appreciation of how you can have a ceremonial role, because that's basically what this comes down to. The Governor General was ceremonial too. The President is more ceremonial than that. This is a literal figurehead changing every 4 years. Imagine if they used to do it like the UK used to and put the regent on the stamp. You'll be changing stamps every 4 years. I mean, for crying out loud. Not that it is a job that requires security of tenure, but it is certainly one that addresses stability of government. Your head of state matters. And if it is every 4 years we are embroiled in some confusion over a president, what kind of look is that on the international front? We are accustomed to stability. And we now have built in the possibility of instability, and we are not having a single conversation about this. A republic is not a nebulous concept. This is going to be how we live our lives. And let me be clear. Let me be clear. The Democratic Labour Party stands for the republic. We have campaigned on it several elections, including the last one. But never have we ever contemplated moving to a republic without the mandate of the people, the specific mandate of the people of Barbados. Because we recognize what a significant change in the lives of our people it would be. And we also recognize that it is an opportunity for a fulsome discussion on constitutional matters, including our Bill of Rights. That is the level of conversation that the Democratic Labour Party wants to have with the people of Barbados in relation to the Republic. And I tell you, I am at section 34G. There is a wealth of information before and after this. I just want to mention one little nugget because I really think that when we are making these decisions, we have to make them from an informed position. Do you know that the president, during his term of office, his short term of office, will be immune from either civil or criminal prosecution? That is built in. Short term of office, 4 years. 4-year term. And you are immune from prosecution, either civil or criminal. How, I beg your pardon? This is in the proposed amendments to the Constitution. The president will have those immunities. All of these things are things that you need to know when you are making a decision. And it cannot be that it flies under the radar whilst you get pretty speeches and no substantive discussion. So far, all of the consultations with the people of Barbados have been privately instigated. I watched an online meeting with the New York diaspora and the Attorney General of Barbados on the Republic. And not a man of them can face the people of Barbados that live here so. We are the ones that we need to be included in this discussion. I saw, and I'm sure you did because it was circulating on social media, the letter to the private sector asking for their opinion. I don't know if you saw the response, but I did, because the response was how you could ask me for my opinion on a document that I've never seen. And that is how the whole of Barbados feels about it. What republic is 6 weeks' time, because that is the deadline that they have given. What republic in 6 weeks' time are we getting? Have you been told? Have you been informed? Has someone gone through sections 1 to 33 with you, or section 34A to F in the way that I have delved into G? Do you know that there is more coming after? Has someone gone through this very legal and intricate document and fleshed it out for you, as is our duty as your leaders? When you write BPS in the future from the 1st of December, do you know if you are sending a letter or calling the police? We have to take this republic conversation seriously. We are spending time, beg your pardon, we are spending time talking about a republic because the government of the day has put that on the agenda. But the Democratic Labour Party at this time would rather be talking about how the lives of our people have been made so much more difficult. Comrade Richard spoke to it. Never mind the voice, listen to the message. The voice will come back. Why are we having this discussion now? What is this smoke screen all about? Why can't we hear how this administration has pivoted to bring Barbados out safely on the other side of this COVID pandemic? What are the plans and strategies? Do we have to wait for another glossy manifesto and covenant of hope? Not a thing to show before COVID in terms of a report card, and even less since then. How is it that we can be spending all of this time and energy discussing a republic with a report that lay idle for 23 years? How is it that we can now have a time to discuss this when our people are facing the worst cost of living crisis that we have ever faced? When a mother has to make a choice as to who eats in her house. I am sure those of you who are out there campaigning have heard these stories. And the more I hear, the more I remember my father talking about the post-war period. That is what it feels like in Barbados, that we are under siege. And we have runaway gas prices. We hold our breath. Lord have mercy, is this evening or tomorrow that we will find out how much the petrol prices have gone up by, because they very rarely come down. And to have one of the leading spokespersons in that bulging economic grouping that's supposed to be advising the Minister of Finance say to the country that there is the fiscal room to remove some of the duties on petrol. That does not only affect people with cars, that affects anybody who goes to a supermarket, because there are transport costs for bringing goods. So that's everybody except the one who said that prices hadn't gone up in several years. I'm pretty sure he's never seen the inside of a supermarket. We cannot allow the government of the day to push the meaningful conversations under the rug and blow smoke in our faces with a republic when there are larger issues for us to be discussing in this country. This is not the time to sit silent. This is the time for our voices to be heard. We need to speak up and let the government of the day know how we as a country really feel about moving to a republic at a time when it really does not matter to us because it is not impacting on our lives, about moving to a republic at a time when we have had absolutely no discussion on the point in any meaningful way with the people of Barbados, and moving to a republic when really and truly just moving from one place to another is a struggle for our people. When our children are held to ransom where their education is concerned, those of us who are lucky, and it is luck, we never thought before that having electricity was a lucky thing, that having a Wi-Fi connection was a lucky thing. We're all back in the 50s and 60s in terms of our development, where basic utilities, look, say, Lucy, people don't let me talk about water today. That's a whole other discussion. A whole other discussion. But we have children, you're giving them tablets, but you never ask them if they had electricity at home. You never ask them if they had Wi-Fi supply. How are our children being educated? And it is not that the teachers aren't trying. I cannot imagine being a teacher in this day and age, especially a teacher who is a parent. So they have to mind the classroom and mind their child in class at the same time. And God help them if they have more than one child at different ages. Why are these not the burning issues that we are standing in Parliament as the leaders of our people and debating solutions for? Why is it that we cannot have these weighty discussions? We can hear flamboyant speeches on the international stage, but we can't get the business done at home. That is the primary concern, that we get our own house in order. Because whilst this government is blinkered and only focused on COVID, all we can see is evidence of their mismanagement of that one thing that is taking up all of their time. This time so last year, when we had 0 cases active, and we had managed to contain the numbers of the deaths till 7, not that we did not feel that, because each one of them had a sorrowing family left behind. Our people are not statistics only. But we saw the avarice of this present administration. They had a citizen of Barbados give them for free the idea of the welcome stamp. And it is a wonderful initiative. We could tell that it wasn't their brainchild, huh? A wonderful initiative. But they can't spraddle the whole thing by also grasping at the short-term tourists. At a time when we needed as an island, a small, developing island, with a healthcare system that is under pressure on any given day without COVID. It was and is the responsibility of government to keep COVID from our shores. It is our responsibility as citizens to keep COVID from spreading here. But it can't spread if you, the government of the day, the Motley administration, had managed our borders properly. That is where the crisis came. And it came because the Democratic Labour Party has always been signaling that this was not a political problem. It has been politicized. Just like they politicized the sewage issue on the South Coast. And for the same reason, they will be taken to task for it. You put it in this space. It has to be dealt with here now. But the refusal to listen to BAMP, I can't get it to add up. If you sit with them and you come out and you make a policy statement and they have to come out the next day and say that's not it, why are we here today? Is this the leadership you signed up for? Are you satisfied now to just watch? Because whilst you were watching, some sort of madness happened with vaccines that we can't get a straight story on yet. And the Prime Minister, Motley, will have us believe that it is a red herring. But I can tell you, something smells fishy. Every day you open a paper, you are hearing a different version of events. I can't wait to read the defense. But to have AstraZeneca come out and directly contradict the acting Prime Minister, Cynthia Bradshaw, in what she told the country is the story behind the first load of vaccines to arrive. We need to hear from government on that. That is a pressing issue in this country. Not a republic. That is a pressing issue in this country. And it isn't only pressing because we say so. This has the potential to interfere with our international reputation. And we have to be aware of this. This is shaping up to be quite a stink and a scandal. I'm still waiting to hear the answer to the 800% markup. I'm still waiting to hear the answer as to who the beneficiaries were intended to be after a product starts off at $3 a dose. According to Radical Investments, they were arranging to buy at $10 a dose. And according to the Prime Minister, the cash on delivery agreement was for $24 a dose. I want to know who was getting the profit. We know who owned the company, as in a director, but actual ownership and sharing in profits is for shareholders. I want to know who they are. Who was going to be carrying the country of Barbados to the cleaners? Because that is what it looks like. And don't tell me to take any comfort in the fact or the assertion, because these days you don't really know what is true for a fact when they open their mouths. Don't tell me that the public purse is not affected because it was a cash on delivery and therefore we shouldn't be keeping any noise about it. When Mayor Amor Motley, as leader of the opposition, and I have in hand a private member's resolution signed by her, dated the 28th of August 2015, and dealing with Cahill. Cahill, Comrade Richard, you could put me wrong if I walk past the stage of a memorandum of understanding. So no money change hands. I beg your pardon. No taxpayers' money change hands, because she really never said that money didn't go. Okay? No taxpayers' money change hands. And a whole private member's resolution was devised asking for specific information and for documents to be laid in the House, the memorandum of understanding, any implementation agreement, a power purchase agreement. Full transparency she asked for, be it resolved in the interest of full transparency and in order that the Parliament and people of Barbados may better understand the extent of the obligations agreed to by the government of Barbados in the name of the people of Barbados, and to discern what clauses may be contained therein to protect the government of Barbados and the public interests of Barbados, the Parliament requires the Prime Minister as the Chairman of Cabinet to produce and to lay these documents in Parliament. And this had nothing to do with any monies signed off on by the Cabinet of Barbados. She didn't only ask questions publicly, she carried them all the way to Parliament, these questions. I don't think it saw the light of day, but it was crafted and laid. And then I am to be shouted down. Well, I am not getting into a shouting match with anybody, but good luck shutting me up. The people of Barbados need a voice, and the Democratic Labour Party is determined to be the voice of the people of Barbados. And it is because we recognize that the people of Barbados are completely without a voice at this time that the Democratic Labour Party will have its say on the Republic. We started before, and we held a panel discussion on the Republic. But the message as to the actual content is only now available, because before we were just talking about concepts, because never had we reached into the brain of the Prime Minister to find out what she was thinking about where the Republic was concerned. We only had a by the way comment on the day of national significance. And the first crystallized idea is this bill. And the Democratic Labour Party is going to make sure that the people of Barbados understand what it is you are being asked to sign up for. Because none of the pretty speeches in Parliament last Tuesday addressed anything that was just mentioned. And I only spoke on one section. Even if we take one concept a day from now to the 30th of November, you will not get everything that is in this document. And as I said, we haven't even gone near the charter. This is not the time to be rushing legislation of this type. You want to rush legislation? Let's talk about let's talk about having legislation to deal with integrity in public life. You want to rush legislation? Let us stop pretending that the Caribbean Court of Justice has not pronounced negatively on the way we run elections here in Barbados in that Dominica case, and have a conversation on campaign financing and campaigning in general going forward. You want to rush legislation? Let us have a conversation about anything at all that improves the lot of our workers who are under siege at a time when the trade unions are under the thumb and their silence is deafening. You want to rush legislation? Let us talk properly then about this. This is not for rushing. This is for careful consideration as the generations coming after have to understand our thinking in how we are reshaping our Constitution. And I can tell you that as I walk Barbados, I hear the cry of our people for a greater and a larger involvement in their determinations. So we may not even be speaking of a figurehead president. I don't know. But until we tap into the minds of our people and hear what they have to say and take them seriously and not just court an X every 5 years or so, but engage with our people in some meaningful way, then we can be in a position to make informed decisions on a republic. But it cannot be that we, a democracy, come to our people with a fait accompli, already done, finished, and you don't care what the people are saying. Anytime your leadership disregards you to that extent, it is time for new leadership. The Democratic Labour Party will stand up and speak up on behalf of the people of Barbados. We have no issue with a republic, but you have to talk to the people about it. It cannot be dealt with in isolation. We will continue to have this conversation with our people because it really is an important conversation. It really must engage the minds of our people, but it must happen with information before you. Never will we ever, going forward, be taking the people of Barbados for granted. That is the pledge of the Democratic Labour Party, and we intend to live up to that. An involved society is the best society. And the intent must be to have our people at the forefront of everything that we do. And like Comrade Richard, we need to think very carefully about the recurring, as the old people say, the recurring decimals, the same names coming up all the time. That too is a threat to our democracy, but a conversation for another time. Take the time, read these documents, so that the next time the Democratic Labour Party steps up to discuss the Republic, it will be to hear from you, the people of Barbados, what you really want and look for in a republic. Because that is our aim, to speak for our people, not to speak over our people. I thank you.
I wish to, don't tell anybody I say this, but the campaign has begun right here. One of the things that, of course, Verla didn't stress on is that the Prime Minister said, and I was reading her comments over the Parliament, she said that it is only a simple thing that we are doing. This is an amendment to the Constitution of Barbados. It cannot be simple. And then, of course, she said that debate will begin in January, and it probably lasts a year. You know, I am happy that we got somebody in our organization like Verla, Depeiza, that can expound on these matters for the knowledge of the people of Barbados. I went through the 1966 election campaign, and it was a serious one. In fact, it divided the country right down. I saw that with my own two eyes as a 70-year-old. The country was divided right down the middle. And I followed that campaign with my father all over Barbados. And this is another constitutional change. And telling me that it play as though you're playing Monopoly or table tennis, back and forth. No. And I want to thank you, Madam President, for raising this issue. Because this is the second part of my life now. We're moving from one stage to the other, from independence to what we call a republic, and nobody is against that. And I want to thank you. And I've made mental notes of the things you have said here this evening. I will relate them to my book when I get the opportunity to do so. So if there are any questions from anybody for the panel, there's none? Okay, well, nobody? Okay. All right, I want to thank you for those who are online, of listening to the discussions, and those, of course, who are present. I want to thank you very much on behalf of the St. Michael's South Central branch of the Democratic Labour Party for sponsoring these discussions this evening, because it's very, very important. And I repeat, keep it a little secret. The campaign has just begun. Thank you.